Hello and welcome to today's painting stream. I'm going to be putting together Nature's Whispers number 21. If you are interested in the reference photo, it is going to be available on the Discord server and there are links in the channel information. I have some images here. We're going to be basing it off of these two, as you can see. And I went a little bit overboard with the illustration. So instead of guidelines, I kind of have a whole drawing to paint over. And that's fine. That's totally fine. You just can't rub the graphite with the paint too much without it getting smeary. And also, if you're doing this, since we're working a lot with the luminosity of the paper and transparent paints, you're going to want to make sure all the lines that are there, if one of them were to pop through, that you're okay with that. So erase anything you don't want on there. I'm going to get started with our ground or underpainting that is quinacridone nickel azo gold. The palette that I'm using today is titanium white, cerulean blue for our warm blue, ultramarine blue for our cool blue, cadmium red medium for the warm red, and then quinacridone magenta for the cool red. And for our yellow, that is cadmium yellow light, which is kind of as neutral as you can get for yellow. I feel like it goes warm or cool pretty easily. I don't have too much of a problem with it. So anyway, I'm going to start with my large filbert brush, and it has a good amount of water in it. And I'm going to follow my illustration and my reference photo a little bit, and as I put this on, I'm just going to pay attention to my gradients, and I'm also going to keep the brush really light. On the paper, because this is sealing and locking in all of the graphite lines. And you can always go darker, but you can't really go lighter. And I am trying to, again, preserve the luminosity of the paper for the places we want it to, the sun to be shining through. What once was pretty faint pencil lines is now pretty well disappeared. And this down here is all going to be water, so I'm going to keep the strokes horizontal and big sweeping strokes down there. Nice to have your thumbnail handy when you're laying everything out initially, just in case you don't pencil something in because you don't want that line to show through. Remind yourself what you had for planned. This right here is a small reference of the composition that I'm doing, which is a zigzag. And the light is going to be radiating out from the middle. Alright, that feels pretty good. The next step is to put back a little bit of white and then to the yellow. Okay, now I'm going to go to the pink, which I'm making out of the cadmium red medium and the titanium white. Okay, I think I'm going to go a little bit more magenta now. Jumping back to the pink mixture, just to add some variation to that purple that I put in the sky. And I am going to make this big pinkish cloud break away to yellow right in this area. So it's going to be similar lighting to this, but not the same cloud layout. Alright, that's just the upper shadow of the clouds. I'm not going to go too heavy with that. In fact, a lot of that is going to get the blue sky color negative painted over the top, and that's going to form the clouds. So I'm kind of painting the cloud gradient on first and then shaping it with the blue after the fact. When you're working with paint that has a lot of water in it, or if you're scumbling it on or dry brushing or whatever it is that makes it less thick, it is going to dry a different transparency and a different strength than when you put it on. So you might need to reapply, like after it dries, you'll go back and check and see if it's doing what you want it to do still. You might need to make adjustments. Okay, there, that feels good. Now I'm going to carry those colors into the water reflection. Once you start going off your reference, you really have to pay attention. I don't use black paint, so I am always mixing a cool dark value or a warm dark value. So those trees are far in the distance. It's gonna get a cool dark color. I think that might be better for mid-ground. I'm gonna have to gray it out a bit for the background. I'm also gonna switch to a smaller brush because this is a little bit too big for doing that kind of work. Being really delicate with the outside edges of these trees. I'm going to do a little bit of negative painting to give them some shape. But then when I get to the water line, I'm going to, with my flat brush, change the angle and just put these shapes in with just horizontal strokes. And the bristles on this one are pretty bouncy. Still an acrylic brush, although it's a 1/4 inch fat PHAT handled stroke, which, you know, honestly, your guess is as good as mine where this came from. Myers-Mac, the Myers-Mac Fat PHAT. I would rather go too much water on the first pass than not enough water. Every layer of paint's going to give you a little bit more dimension anyway, so fine by me. Now I'm moving into the mid-ground trees. Alright, this filbert is gonna go take a nap. Done with that one. All right. I'm gonna come back to this shape and change it quite a bit. There will be more sky holes. And I want the value to be just a little bit darker. However, I do like the value of the background tree line versus the midground. I feel like the difference between the two is pretty good. Maybe I'll leave it. I don't know. Time will tell. The shapes are looking good too, though. Alright, now moving on to this little landmass. Going to be a similar value to the midground, maybe with a little bit more warmth to it. A little bit closer to the viewer so it won't be so shrouded in darkness. Those are not staying white. Don't worry. I'm going to tint all of that on another pass. That white I painted earlier here now gets a transparent layer right over it, and it just adds a little bit more dimension to the grass there. And I just want this shape here to get darker as we go away from the focal point. And I don't want that hard line to lead your eye off the page. There we go. That's better. Okay, now we're going to tackle this grass mass here. Grass mass. I'm going to start with this flat brush, and then I may switch to a script to get some of the individual grass shapes, more defined grass shapes. This is closest to us, so it's going to be a little darker. Yeah, this is where I switch right now, but I'm going to go back to that brush. Right here I have a number 1 liner, and this is a watercolor brush technically. There is a material list on my website if you are interested in everything that I have here. There's also an ebook on my website that details my painting methods and all the colors and the paint brands and all that nitty-gritty stuff. It's all on the website if you are interested. These little grasses on the edge, I want them to be respected individually, I suppose, because they are towards the center of the piece and they are going towards the focal point. You can change your dark value from warm to cool to get some really subtle variation and more texture. And I'm pretty happy with the top edge of the grass, so now I'm going to change my brush stroke direction to more down, because it seems like this grass is just growing out of the water or slough or whatever it is. Just not going to go as crazy. I added more magenta and went back, and I'm adding more strands. Get the grass density a little bit higher. After this grass patch right here in the foreground is all dry, I'm going to need to add some shadow to it, for sure. And all this waterway is going to get tiny little light details coming through. But before I do that, I'm going to get this tree shadow going, and then I'm going to go up into that tree. I'm not going to worry about being exact with the reflection. I think when you're super exact with the reflection, it's just a lot of unnecessary grief. But that is a stylistic choice. If you want to spend your effort points on that, that is up to you. put these trunk reflections in with vertical lines, so I'm gonna kind of squiggle them around a bit. Alright, happy with that. Now moving on to the tree. Don't have to worry about the direction of my brush strokes as much with the tree. It's a natural form, and I can just make sure to get lines that I like on there. I made this tree really branchy. It's different stylistically. I don't know what kind of tree it is. That's okay. It's not so much a specific place. Just the feel of the scene is what we are doing with the paintings in this series. Okay, I think I got them all. Now I'm going to switch back to that flat brush, or I'm sorry, the fat brush that I put aside. Adding a little cerulean blue to make this color a little bit more green, shift in the green direction. Because I believe it would be a little bit more green on that tree up in the foliage where there is the most light and towards the light source. I'm going to be rotating my brush a lot to vary the shapes. The flat brush is awesome for this because it gives you a big variety of shapes, both thick and thin. Okay, I think what I'm gonna do is, now that I'm about halfway through the tree and rotating over to the left and towards the sun, I am gonna add more yellow. A bit. I definitely recommend changing the color of the foliage on your trees as you rotate towards a light source. It gives it a lot more dimension. Even if you just do it kind of haphazardly, it still is a lot more dimension. Because you have light coming in through all those sky holes. And it makes your tree look less flat. I'm gonna pull some of the branches forward of the foliage that I just pulled all over everything. I'm gonna need to remix that dark value though, which is fine. I mix paint a lot throughout the painting process. I think that when you're using a limited palette like this, you learn how to mix paint faster because there's less variables happening. When you only have a warm red and a cool red, they only mix so many ways, and when you learn that your warm colors interact with your cool colors differently, then it's just easier to translate. It's easier to remix them every single time. And also, it just, there's more color harmony when you have a system like this going. And when you're branch mixing, I've heard it referred to as this. When you're mixing colors from other piles of paint that you've already mixed that are in the scene, it creates better color harmony because they're all coming from the same thing. This is what I've heard. This must be what's happening. It seems to be true. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought it up. going to be really careful with these little branches because these are the ones that are going to show the most, and they're getting close to that focal point. The branches on top of the foliage don't necessarily need to be connected to the trunks. They could just be little errant branches that are sticking out from somewhere, like straight at you from inside. As long as it isn't completely disjointed from the tree, then it's going to be okay. That's getting there. That's starting to feel more convincing. I don't want to say real because I would not describe myself as a realism painter by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. That feels pretty good. Oh yeah, the sky. Remember the sky? Gonna need to get this brush looking a little bit fresher. Okay. One reference has a lot more blue coming through than the other, but I'm not totally in love with either. I'm just getting a gauge of what to do with the intensity of the color and the darkness of the color as you move away from the sun in this scene in particular. I'm gonna go white and cerulean blue as I often do. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna come in from the outside, and I'm gonna try to be mindful of my brush strokes here. Need to go back into the direction of the tape just a little bit. Cover that gap. I'm going to go over a little bit of that just to get the right opacity. Okay, now I need to lighten my paint color up. I feel like there should be a couple more little sky holes. Just trying to decide where to put them. That's kind of a soft fade on that color there. Makes me feel like the sun is possibly behind that really murky cloud. It's possible. Okay, so if you ever run into this where you feel like the paint you're putting down is getting wiped up, just go somewhere else. Just break away and work on a different spot and just leave it and then do another layer later. Because even I get tempted to do that. I'm going to work on some sky holes. You just have to keep in mind what the big branches are doing when you're negative painting some of these shapes. You don't need to cut out all the shapes, just enough to make it look like light is coming through, because it definitely gives it more dimension. I just needed that shape to be a little crisper. There we go. I think while that sky is drying, I'm going to work on the reflections. Okay, I'm happy with the reflection. Maybe just a little bit of, maybe a little bit of blue in there, I suppose. A light blue. Gonna have to rinse the brush out better than that, though. Too muddy. It's gonna be kind of subtle because I don't want to disturb anything that I like that's already going on in here. Okay, now to add that faint little amount of glisten on the water. I might switch to a script. I think it's too scary to do it with the flat. And then I also wedge the tip and turn it towards the sharp edge. I don't think you can see it. Maybe. There's a definite difference. There's no edge of this reflection right here, so I'm gonna leave that alone for the most part. But I am gonna highlight this waterline down here. I'm gonna try to vary the thickness of that line and the starts and stops of it as well. Okay, now I think I talked about modifying the negative shapes on these midground trees. Let's do that. Okay, I can feel that. That looks good. I'm going to do this a little bit for the background trees, but just a bit. Nothing too crazy. I want to take some of those back, I'm not gonna lie. Gonna brush right over some of those. Suppose that'll do. Okay, now the only thing we have left to do is to adjust the sky. And really just that one part, I think. In places that I find hard to blend, I don't even try. I just make an artful brush stroke there instead of trying for that perfect blend. I think I'm gonna add some a bright orange in, just on the inside edge of the cloud shape. So I'm mixing kind of a melon. This is the sparkle layer. Now I'm going to make sure that all the colors in the sky are represented in the reflection, for the most part. Okay, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I think. Maybe a couple little additions to this tree, because it's a big point of interest. Want to make it sparkle. Okay, I think I'm gonna call it right there. I think we're good. I like the tone of it. It's a little bit different than what I have been painting maybe the last like 3 or 4 or 5. I don't know. This one was a little bit more artsy, so that was fun. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I look forward to seeing all of you wonderful people, painting people, again next time.